Have you ever been caught in the web of a dark pattern?
I actually had to Google how to cancel my subscription.
I really hate it when I'm trying to unsubscribe from a website and I get put through to their unsubscribe page and it says, choose how you'd like us to manage your information.
And then they go through and they're like, okay, but are you sure? Do you really want this?
And it still retains all of your information.
And then they proceeded to hound me for months. Actually, a year, I reckon. They're like, you can get this discount and you can get this discount. It's like, I can't afford it. I don't want it. Stop hounding me.
Kia ora, I'm Davina Zimmer, and on The Detail today, the internet traps designed to make you spend more money or pressure you into not cancelling a subscription. A food delivery company operating in New Zealand has just been fined hundreds of thousands of dollars for using these tactics. They're not explicitly illegal, but they're getting overwhelming, and if you're online shopping this Christmas, you need to watch out for them. Consumer NZ's Invisible Influence report has studied the concept of these dark patterns.
It's a tricky thing to describe in a sentence because, I put this to people during our research period and they'd be like, is it AI? Is it a scam? No, it's none of those things. It's more subtle. It's more insidious. It's these little digital design tricks that have infiltrated our online shopping experience.
It identified 10 of these deceptive digital designs being used by New Zealand websites. The report has also issued several recommendations to tackle the issue, including creating new laws. But there's already doubt that will help.
Creating new laws will not solve anything. We've already got existing laws that are not being used properly, and the EU experience has showed that even a lot of laws, even quite detailed laws, even laws with big fines, is still not working.
That's commercial law professor Alex Sims. She doesn't necessarily think creating a bunch of new laws will solve the issue of dark patterns, and later in the podcast we'll hear her explain why. But first, Chris Schultz is one of the authors of the Consumer NZ report. He says it's a bit tricky to explain what dark patterns are.
So if I give you some examples, that'll probably help. It's things like hidden fees, where you make a purchasing decision, get to the checkout, and suddenly there's $20, $30, $40 extra added on. It's things like scarcity queues. I think everyone's seen those. Only one left at this price notes. And then things like subscription traps, right? Everyone's had a meal kit delivery service or a gym membership that they just can't be bothered to cancel because it's going to be painful. Like you clicked a button to sign up, it was instant. To unsubscribe, you've got to jump through hoops. You've got to make a phone call or you've got to go through a whole questionnaire and you've got to find the time to do that. It's all of these just little things that have crept into the online world and are just subtly working away.
These patterns aren't accidental. They're tactical sales strategies designed to encourage shoppers to spend more money.
And our research showed that that's working, but it has the opposite effect of, eroding our confidence. And, people told us they don't like these things. They don't like it when businesses try and deceive or manipulate, and that's how these things make them feel. So there's this real balancing act there.
Your research... Tell me about it. How did it come about and what was part of the research?
I was just journalists in a newsroom, like any good story, I guess. Like, is this a thing? It turns out it is a thing. We first started talking about it back in 2023, I found out the other day, but the work really began in April. We started digging in. We put out a nationwide survey. That's 1,500 people we spoke to. And then we got all this data about how dark patterns make them feel, what they've seen, what online shopping has become to them. And then we sat down for some interviews. We put people through an hour of dark patterns, 10 people. We sat with them and we asked them to just do everyday online activities. So booking accommodation, buying concert tickets, cancelling a subscription and booking flights. And those are... they're things we do every day, but they've become riddled with dark patterns.
I really hate it when I'm trying to unsubscribe from a website and I get put through to their unsubscribe page and it says, choose how you'd like us to manage your information. And it gives you a false choice. And so you untick yourself from all the boxes and it still retains all of your information. And I can't find the box that says, your information has been deleted from our website.
So the overwhelming vibe, if you like, was that people feel frustrated and annoyed by dark patterns. These things, we found, they have a triple impact, right? They take our money. First off, people told us that they have spent more because of dark patterns, whether that's a subscription you can't get out of, or some kind of upsell, or you bought something you didn't intend to. They waste our time. Some of these dark patterns are designed to keep us engaged longer on sites, or to stop us from going elsewhere to research whether you're getting a good deal or not. And they just affect our confidence as well. They just chip away at how people feel, especially if you're in a less confident bracket.
And then there's privacy.
You'll often get these offers, 10% off, if you sign up, right? Everyone's seen these things. And so then you'll have to put in your name. You'll have to put in your address, your date of birth, whether you're male, female or other, sometimes even more than that, right? And then your credit card details as well. And then these companies have information on you. We know they can use that data to target advertising at you. We know companies do that, right? That's part of the loyalty card system. So, yeah, we would just caution people to be very careful about who you're giving your details to, because that's often just part of the tactic, Data is key information, and it's a way of then just extracting more money out of you. That's what these things are designed to do.
A couple of years ago, it was a one-day sale here or a countdown on your shopping cart there. But over time, more and more businesses have jumped on the dark pattern bandwagon.
It's ubiquitous now. I had this just the other day. I went online to buy some drinks, these sodas that I really like. I wanted one box. When I got to the checkout, they'd pre-selected buy 6, and I'd get a bigger discount, but instead of the $40-odd I was going to spend, it was going to be $200-odd for 6 dozen. I didn't want 6 dozen drinks, but if I'd gone through with that, if I'd been tired, maybe I didn't see it. I don't know. They're there. There are rules and regulations overseas, but here in Aotearoa, they've just kind of gone unchecked.
Is it also a matter of people maybe not necessarily recognising, connecting the dots that this sales tactic is a dark pattern and it actually isn't really legal?
Yeah, it was really interesting sitting down with people and watching them go through it, because like I said, you'd say to them, do you know what a dark pattern is? And they'd just and ah and be like, is that how the supermarket's laid out? Kind of, yeah, but online. It's the online version of it. Someone suggested dark patterns are like you walking into a shop in down Queen Street, and then someone starts piling up boxes at the door so you can't get out. That's kind of like the digital version of it. So once their brains just got what we were talking about, these everyday things that everyone sees all of the time, they just kind of connected. And so, yeah, once you spot one, you do start seeing them everywhere.
Does awareness of dark patterns actually change our purchasing habits, though?
It's tricky, right? Because some of these companies, you have to go to them to get these things. If you want your concert tickets, there's only 1 or 2 companies who sell concert tickets. If you want a meal kit subscription, there are only a handful of companies doing that. Our research showed that people don't like them, and also it does negatively affect their view of that business. Also, they'll go and tell their friends about it. We had people tell us that, if they're going to go through all of this to cancel a subscription, they're not going to come back, right? So you've had a one-off, subscription from this person. You've made them angry by making it really hard to unsubscribe. And so they don't want to come back in the future, maybe when they feel like subscribing again. So, yeah, we feel like it's a better practice to build a business that people love and want to be part of, rather than sort of making it really hard to leave and putting people through these experiences. In Aotearoa, we don't have restrictions on these things. You can have a completely different experience with a website, say if you're in Europe where there are protections, or America where there are protections. In Australia, they're looking at banning a whole suite of these dark patterns, from hidden fees to dynamic pricing. And so over there, you may not get countdown timers or hidden fees, but in New Zealand you can experience those things because there just are no rules and regulations around them.
Creating new laws will not solve anything. We've already got existing laws that are not being used properly, and the EU experience has showed that even a lot of laws, even quite detailed laws, even laws with big fines, is still not working.
Alex Sims is a commercial law professor at the University of Auckland who's written extensively about this topic. While dark patterns aren't explicitly illegal, she says companies can face consequences if they breach the Fair Trading Act or the Privacy Act.
So the issue isn't so much with the law, it's with the enforcement.
So talk to me about what we already have.
Okay, so the main one is under the Fair Trading Act, where businesses cannot be misleading, deceptive, and mislead people about price and things like that. So quite a few of the dark patterns are misleading, and so therefore they breach the Fair Trading Act. Classic one a lot of people experience as a dark pattern is when you're buying something and you see the price for something. It might be a concert ticket, and you go in and you click it might be $150, but when you get to checkout, all of a sudden it's 200 and something, and that's because there are hidden fees which you didn't know about. It's called drip pricing or hidden fees, and that would be covered clearly under the Fair Trading Act. The Privacy Act is when, if you go online, you're asked to put in your name, your email address, phone number, and things like that. Now, if that's been obtained when it's not been fair, so say, for example, you want to buy a pair of shoes and you click it, you want to do it, you go to the checkout, and then it says create an account, and it requires your email address and your phone number and all these other things that you don't want to give. Well, arguably, you could say that's not fair, because the only way that you could buy those shoes is to enter that information. Plus, if you'd known about that at the beginning, you probably wouldn't have even gone and made that selection. And so under the Privacy Act, if the information has been collected in a manner that is not fair, then that is a breach of the Privacy Act.
I did read in the very extensive report that you've written about this topic is the Privacy Act does not require the user's consent to collect data. Do you mind expanding on that? Because I think people would probably read that and think, oh, wait, it's my data and they don't need my consent to use it. That seems a bit shady.
Well, yes, New Zealand's a little bit of an outlier. So if you go to somewhere like Europe with the GDPR, you need fully informed consent. And that's often why when you go into a website, you've got a box that pops up and says, accept all cookies type of things. But we don't have that. So in the New Zealand Act, basically, as long as you tell people what you're going to do and they keep on going, for example, by entering the website, then that is sufficient.
But what happens if you feel like your privacy has been unfairly breached? There aren't many paths to take. You could go to the disputes tribunal, but that costs time and money, neither of which you get back even if you win. Alex says the most practical step someone can do is to share their experience.
So that can have a big impact. And I always tell people if they've had a bad experience, especially when the business has broken the law, then get on social media and complain. And that quite often can actually change behaviour more effectively than so-called breaking a law.
So do you think the solution to stopping businesses from using dark patterns is more public discourse around the topic?
Well, yes. So it could be public discourse. It can also be enforcement. Okay? So the Commerce Commission, that's the regulator that looks after the Fair Trading Act. It has taken some action, but not that much. But also, even if you have a whole lot of laws, so a really good example is the European Union. The European Union, or EU, has about 13 bits of legislation that cover dark patterns, various aspects of it. So you might say, wow, but it doesn't work, okay? Almost all websites in the EU still have dark patterns. In fact, it's so bad that they're proposing yet another law. So laws don't work.
Is that because the enforcement's not there?
Yes.
So what enforcement is needed?
Well, the Commerce Commission in New Zealand has got a range of things it can do. So it, for example, can send letters to companies and say, well, you're on our watch list. If you don't change your practices, we may take you to court. And actually that's really effective rather than suddenly going to court, because it's a lot of money, a lot of resources. And if businesses see that the laws are actually being enforced, they might do something.
These dark patterns are incredibly effective. Alex says a study that monitored websites found those using them had double the participation rate than websites that didn't. When there was an aggressive use of dark patterns, that participation rate quadrupled. Couple that with a lack of enforcement laws, and it's not hard to see why businesses use them so much.
Even if they do go to this extreme end, because what will happen is normally the Commerce Commission will come along, write a letter saying, look, we're investigating this. And often if the company goes, oh, look, I'm really sorry, we didn't realise, we won't do it again, sometimes the Commerce Commission will keep on going, but most of the time they won't. So, for example, Jetstar, that was a classic example where, when you go in to book a flight, and it might be advertised at $169, but when you go and look at it, it'll be a lot more expensive. They've changed it, but this way it was. It was because they had, again, pre-selected like extra luggage and insurance. So you'd have to go through and untick all of those things. Now, at the time that happened, a whole lot of other businesses were also doing that. And so the Commerce Commission contacted a number of them and said, don't do it. And they all didn't do it. So none of them were prosecuted at all. And then Jetstar didn't do anything. And so that's when the Commerce Commission put a bit more pressure. And then Jetstar stopped it. But the Commerce Commission still didn't prosecute them. But I think that's sort of almost sensible from the Commerce Commission because it's only got limited resources. So you could spend a whole lot of money on a court case dealing with one person versus, say, 100 different businesses to get them to change their behaviour.
So is resourcing what is needed to change the behaviour?
Yeah, resourcing the Commerce Commission so it can take more cases would be sensible. But also, I think users have got 2 or 3 things. So first of all, what they should be doing is when they experience dark patterns is just stop using that website. And that's what the Consumer NZ report actually identified. I think it was almost 40% of people had stopped using websites. And that's really, really powerful. Then you've also got the telling people about it, not to use that website. You've also got making a complaint to the Commerce Commission. And that's why HelloFresh were actually prosecuted, because a whole lot of people complained as well.
HelloFresh has been fined $845,000 for a hard sell campaign that turned misleading, leaving hundreds of customers feeling duped into signing up for meal kits they didn't want.
But they've still got a painful process. And what it is that there's also a combination of dark patterns. So it's not necessarily just one. It can be a whole lot in the same sort of transaction. And that's actually worse because the more you have, the worse it is on people. And so what you first had to do, if you're a subscriber, you had to find the cancellation button, which wasn't that easy.
I actually think it'd be easier to escape from prison than it would to get out of this HelloFresh subscription. So I went on the app and I was like clicking through so many times to figure out how to cancel the subscription.
Also, the pause my deliveries was already pre-selected. So that wasn't unsubscribing, it was just having a pause. So slightly different there. And then on that page, they were warned of all the benefits they'll lose. There was discounts, loyalty points. So that's like a confirm shaming bit, trying to make them feel guilty. And then the next step, subscribers are asked, why are you leaving? So you actually have to type something out.
I don't have to tell you why. If I don't want it, you don't get my money.
And then another step was that if they put something in, then they were offered a 70% discount if they stayed, but only if they persuaded another friend to sign up. And then finally, if they said, no, I don't want that, they were then given another opportunity not to cancel, and it had a button that says, I didn't mean to cancel.
HelloFresh has since updated its subscription services, telling Consumer NZ it's streamlined and simplified its cancellation process in the wake of consumers' research. But these kinds of sale tactics remain rife, and the question is, how do you determine whether a business is being deceptive or if the customer just hasn't done their due diligence in reading the T's and C's? And if you think you can't do anything to change things, you're wrong. You can complain.
If the Commerce Commission doesn't know anything about it, can't do anything.
Likewise, if your information is being collected unfairly, you can complain to the Privacy Commissioner. But Alex says nobody does. And while one complaint might not make a difference, it all adds up.
If a number of other people do it, that will make a difference. And it does, because that's why there's been a number of Commerce Commission looking into these things because of their complaints. The law is on the side of the user, okay? And so if you are doing things which are misleading, that's misleading and potentially a breach of the Fair Trading Act. So say a flight, because that's a typical one, unfortunately, for dark patterns. And it might have a price of, Auckland to Wellington for $50, and it has a little asterisk, okay? Because you go, oh, wow. And then the asterisk at the bottom might say, only for Tuesdays at 7 o'clock in the morning. You can look at the very fine print down the bottom, but no, because human behaviour or psychology is such that they know that you see that, and most people won't look down, or that's enough to then persuade someone to buy that ticket, to keep on even when it's more expensive.
What's the next steps from here? Do you actually expect any change to come out of this?
Not initially. I mean, yes, we've got the Consumer New Zealand report, but this has been a big issue and everyone's known about it. There's been other work in New Zealand, so it's not new. There's almost like three players here. You've got the businesses themselves, you've got the regulator, you've got the user. Okay, I think they all need to play their part. But also another point, which we haven't covered, is that the people that are designing these websites, a lot of them don't like this, but they're being forced to by the business. And then other businesses say, well, we have to use it because our competitors are using it. And so one thing I've thought about, but I haven't done anything about it, is maybe having something like a check mark or something on a website, like we don't use dark patterns. And so then people could, if they go to that particular business, that will then sort of maybe force other businesses also to play fairly. What the Commerce Commission needs to do, and the Office of Privacy Commissioner as well, is to have more information on their websites and saying, right, this is an example of a dark pattern, but this is how you can have it so that it's not a dark pattern. I mean, things like when you've got, the buttons that you can press, like, yes, I want to accept and no, I don't. Both the same size, not one coloured and the other not coloured. So there's basic design techniques that you could do. So I think saying it's too hard is not a valid argument.
Alex says a few tweaks to current acts might help.
So the first one is, with the Privacy Act, have it so that when someone has signed up to social media or something like that, that the highest privacy preservation settings are set. So your information is not being shared with anyone else or anything like that, and then allow the user, if they want to, then to share it more so that they actually have to go in and make changes. Because at the moment, it's almost like it's wide open and then someone has to try to make it more private, which can actually be really difficult to do. So the second one is prevent nagging. So there's a really good report from Australia where they actually looked at a whole lot of websites and they found that nagging is popping up between every 4 to 11 seconds. Which is phenomenal.
So that's these little pop-up boxes and little like, oh, look here, look here, look here.
Yeah. So in Europe, the GDPR and the Data Act say that you basically can't do that and you've got a sort of a set time period. So you can't ask them more than, say, once every year, for example. So there's that one. Now, the third one is what we call subscription traps. So that's when you've signed up for, say, HelloFresh, and it's very difficult to get out, or you sign up for a free trial and all of a sudden your credit card's being charged a whole lot of money. And this is actually a really common complaint area to the Commerce Commission. And so what I would say there is, again, follow the European Union and say that the ability to cancel a subscription shouldn't be any harder than it was to sign up for it.
Before we wrap things up, some final bits of advice from Chris.
Take your time, do your research. I had one person in the interview process for this report tell me that she would load up her basket and then sleep on it. And I love that. I'm going to start doing that. Rather than just loading up your basket and pushing buy now, have a sleep on it. Wake up refreshed and then decide if you want those items. Not late at night when you're really tired and you're just probably more at risk of these things influencing your behaviour, but doing it maybe first thing in the morning over a coffee or when you're feeling wide awake.
Is, all of this issue, is there perhaps a positive side to it that because shopping online was meant to be convenient and now it's becoming more of a pain, that people will choose to go back in store?
I love that. Yes. I do feel like there's something in that, right? Like when you think about music lovers who are returning to vinyl rather than streaming music, people are going to live concerts more and more. There is something about that experience. I love talking to shopkeepers. You don't get that experience when you're online, Sometimes you can have really good conversations with people in store. Maybe. I think that could be an upside, yeah.
That's all for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and NZ On Air. Thank you to Chris Schultz and Alex Sims for joining me for this episode. It was produced by Alexia Russell and engineered by Alex Harmer. I'm Davina Zimmer. Mā te wā.